You're listening to Life in Beta. Today on the show, we talk about our disappointment that Libre 3 is apparently not coming to Australia this year. Also, the Change.org petition pushing for automated insulin delivery systems to be covered by Medicare. Wouldn't that be nice? And those times when you have to eat a manky hypo treatment.
Yeah, this is normal, isn't it? This is how people type 1. It was last week that I was sitting in my car with the little tube thing that I store all of my lollies in, which had been sitting on the dash and therefore had become a congealed mesh. And I couldn't get it out of the tube, so I had a pen in there and I was just pulling them out and then stuffing them into my face.
Welcome to Life in Beta, the show where we talk about real life with type 1. We've got news stories today. We've got pricks and picks of the week. It's all happening. It's going to be good. I'm excited. Episode 1. Joining me on the panel today, we have Benjamin, CEO of the Type 1 Family Centre. Type 1 of 21 years.
21 years.
Your diabetes can drink.
My diabetes can drink.
In America.
In America.
I don't know why you'd want to do that, but...
What, drink?
No, it's all right. You just got to...
You just offended Carly and we haven't even started.
I just offended America. We've only just started.
Who else would you like to take a shot at, Adam? Welcome to Life in Beta, where we take shots at anyone.
Well, I always like taking shots at Carly, so it sounds like a good time to introduce her. Carly Green.
Hi.
Hi. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you.
Constant thorn in my side, Carly Green. But apparently she has value.
I'll start off politely.
All right, let's dive in. We got some interesting news stories this week from around the world. So can't name my source at this stage, but I think we've all been waiting for Freestyle Libre 3 to drop this year in Australia. Europe already has it. I think it's out in the US as well. And then I got told by a little birdie that Freestyle Libre 3 is not coming to Australia this year. And we might get 2.5 instead. And I was like, What is 2.5?
What is 2.5?
Yeah, no, it's okay. So apparently...
Libre 2 beta?
So apparently Abbott are separating form factor from features. So you might remember in that rehearsal episode that we did before we published this podcast, we talked...
like, Libre 3's coming.
Yeah,
G7's coming.
Exactly, yeah.
I suspect it's going to be the end of March.
How's that prediction going for you,
We're
Carly?
sitting here mid-May.
Yeah, mine...
Just finding out that Libre 3's not coming at all this year.
Yeah.
Because Adam finds out from a secret source. I imagine you meeting people in some dark alleyway somewhere and handing over.
I go to great lengths for this community, just saying. Yes, dark alleys. I put my life on the line. Anyway, Libre 2.5 is apparently going to have 15-day wear time. So that's up from the current 14-day wear time that it currently is of Libre 2, and also have iCGM status. So that means that it can be used in pumps with an algorithm, like you might be able to use it with Control IQ or...
Now that's cool,
okay.
because we saw Freestyle kind of drop off the radar for a little while when everyone went, does it work with my pump? Crickets.
Exactly.
So it'll integrate with pumps. Which ones?
I think they are in conversations with Tandem.
Get back in your dark alleys and find out for us. I want it back on this podcast.
Right. Sure. And I saw Freestyle Libre 3 on the options of CGM when I set up my Ipsomed pump a year ago.
Okay.
But whether that means that they'll kind of rejig that and say, hey, here, have Freestyle Libre 2.5, I don't know.
Yeah, I was under the impression it was connecting all but Medtronic, the 3.
That would seem right, because Medtronic's not really interested in talking.
3 is listed for Omnipod, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's...
Or Dash 5 at least, which we don't have yet.
It is, yeah.
Yep. Omnipod 5 would be a thing.
I definitely remember seeing that. So that's okay. That's a little bit of a trade-off. It's disappointing, but I guess the main differences apart from that with the 3 was that it was...
We don't get the little
small.
tiny...
Yeah, 10-cent coin.
Yeah. Yeah, so the 3 was going to be even smaller than the tiny Freestyle Libre 2. But yeah, so disappointing that we don't get the smaller size, but we seem to get most of the features. So
one day of wear life.
Trade-off.
Yeah.
No, it's the connecting to the pumps. It's giving a bit more flexibility for people out there because it is still the smallest, sleekest, and soon to be CGM with pumps out there. So
see, I mock the extra day of wear life, but the second I get 15 days, I'm never going back to 14.
Yeah. Well, here I am on my Medtronic Guardian 4 with 7 days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, waiting for that new CGM. Come on. I love their algorithm, but yeah, the 7-day CGM is a bit of a downside. Anyway.
All right.
Looks like an alien as well. I'm just going to put
Looks like an alien.
I've always thought it looks very alien-like.
You look alien-like.
That was bad.
Sorry.
You should be ashamed.
I'll come up with better insults next time. Moving on.
You have depressed the community by telling them they don't get Freestyle Libre 3, and then you have come out of the gates with a terrible insult.
God damn it.
Pick yourself up, Brockway.
Okay, moving on. Dexcom G7 direct to watch.
Now I'm excited.
Yes, I'm so excited about this. So, obviously, we don't have G7 in Australia yet. So, again,
let's talk about things that we're getting in G7 that we don't even have.
But we know the G7 is coming in 2024, correct?
Every sign I have seen points to that, yes.
Carly is attempting to do the thing from The Secret where you just manifest the will strong enough and it will be here.
I'm all about manifestation.
No, I'm so ready. Not that I get to use it either, again, with the Medtronic thing, but yeah, so ready for G7. It's that like lack of warm-up time is so cool.
But G7, direct to watch, no phone in the way.
Correct. So the news part here is that the first region to get direct to watch is the UK and Ireland. So they've...
I'm sorry, where?
Not the usual first release.
Ireland.
Well, that's how I distinguish from an island, like ISLAND, Ireland, IREL. Okay, anyway.
Okay.
Move on.
Okay. So apparently, in terms of setup, what this means is you have to do an initial pairing between the G7 and your Apple Watch. I think after that, the phone automatically tells the watch there's a new sensor. So it's basically just like do you definitely want this on your watch? Yep, all good. After that, when you whack on a new sensor, the phone sends that information to the watch, and then the watch starts communicating with the sensor directly as well. So, yeah.
And this is only Apple Watch?
Only Apple Watch, yes.
I'm
Sorry,
no longer interested.
Android users, no love for you.
Does it include bolus from watch yet?
No.
Is bolus from watch going to be a thing?
No, you can only do that on open source Loop at the moment.
May the Loop be with you,
hey,
people.
Benjamin's got the shirt on, actually. May the Loop be with you.
That's right. There are things that we want, and we're going to get them one way or another.
And so when are we receiving this? Like 2035?
Yeah, who knows, hey. Yeah, so the US doesn't even have it yet. And we don't even have G7 yet. So I don't know whether G7 will launch with direct to watch or whether it'll be, we'll get G7 and then a year later we'll get direct to watch. I don't know.
It's cool.
It is.
We like to take you on an emotional journey in this podcast of really excited by a new feature and then, we can't have it.
that is life with Type 1. So, there's got this new thing elsewhere. It's coming sometime. We don't know when.
It's exciting, but we're probably going to have to wait 8 years for it to come to Australia.
As long as it's not like the cure I was promised 21 years ago, we are okay.
Not that you're better.
No, not at all.
Novo Nordisk. I just wanted to clarify this, I think, for the Australian community. Novo Nordisk is cancelling Levemir. They're stopping production of Levemir in the US. But I spoke to Novo Nordisk this morning and they have confirmed that no, as of now, anyway, they have no plans to cancel Levemir in Australia. So if you are using Levemir right now and kind of seen some news articles about people panicking about Levemir not being a thing, we don't have to worry in Australia, or at least not anytime soon.
And their line is because there's lots of alternatives in the US?
Apparently. I was just about to say, what are
these alternatives and why can't we have them?
That's the follow-up question I should have asked. But yeah, I have no idea what these... Because is Levemir, is that a 12 or 24-hour insulin?
I used to split it morning and night. I think there are people out there that use it once a day. So I think it could be used both ways, but it was more effective for me. From a lot of people that I hear, they find it quite effective in a split dose. I would be devastated if they took Levemir away. Yeah.
Okay. But you don't have to worry about that for now. It's all good. It's all good. Ozempic. This is an ongoing story.
Hot topic.
Benjamin, what's the goss on Ozempic?
Who is not talking about Ozempic? So if you haven't seen the news lately, Ozempic, we know there's a supply shortage. Everyone's trying to get it. It's on TikTok. Everyone's on board for weight loss. There's work being done on
TikTok.
I'm clearly on TikTok all the time. It's my favorite place to hang out. No idea what TikTok is. It's like the real video thing, right?
Yes, darling, it's the real video thing.
I am on the pulse. Anyway, everyone wants it. No one can get it. Supply issues have been international. There's been a bunch of pharmacies who have worked out that you can compound it, which means take the ingredients, put it together yourself at a pharmacy. Compounding pharmacies exist. You ever walk past a pharmacy that says it's a compounding pharmacy? That's what it means. 99.9% of the time, no one cares. It is really useful if you have a child that needs a different delivery method for a medication, like powdering something or putting something into a suspension of liquid or all of that kind of stuff. There are pharmacies which are compounding semaglutide, which is the ingredient in Ozempic, and suddenly starting to provide it on a mass scale. So there are online providers. You can get your script. You can get an unmarked box delivered to your front door with unmarked syringes.
Unmarked syringes, might I add, 4.
Possibly from the same place where Adam finds his in the alleyway information. I don't know.
Just to clarify here, though, that they were doing this under some technical loophole, right?
Well, you can compound most medications, but it's only meant to be done either for an alternative delivery method or in very rare circumstances when that particular drug is not available for an individual.
Can't be accessed.
You can compound it for that individual.
Technically the loophole you're talking about. It's like, woo, we're going to take this and run with it. It's not available because it's been widely used.
Yep. So unsurprisingly, people are excited by it. People have had some really strong results from it. There's no question it has an impact on weight loss for lots of people. So people are trying to get it. And the TGA has popped up and said those compounding requirements are not for mass sale of a product. We should be going through the normal safety processes, the normal manufacturing processes, etc., not relying on an individual pharmacist to make something up. There's no independent testing of what they've made up to say that's working, that's appropriate, etc. So it was meant for an emergency, not meant for mass sale. But there's a commercial opportunity because everyone wants one, so it's being mass produced. And the TGA, in move that I had never predicted from the TGA, who I'm normally associating with we'll get a pump in 2 years, as we were talking about, has raided pharmacies who are compounding semaglutide, presumably to find out if they're doing it and kind of stockpiling semaglutide and then selling it to people.
Of course they are.
So we're talking a bunch of nerds in Riot gear storming a pharmacy?
This is my great image. TGA on the badge. Open up. Where's your semaglutide? Incredible. So yes, the TGA is working on closing that loophole, which is going to frustrate a lot of people who want access to Ozempic. And then at the same time, we found HBF in Western Australia. They are our biggest health insurer. More than 50% of people who have private health insurance in WA have HBF. Are starting to reduce the rebate they're giving for Ozempic as a non-PBS medication, saying that it now represents more than 50% of the claims that they're getting for non-PBS medication. So it has suddenly become the medication that everyone wants, everyone is on, and they are basically crying poor and saying we can't possibly pay for everyone to be on Ozempic.
Private health insurers gave a rebate on Ozempic until I heard that.
Yeah.
Depending on your level of extras cover.
Depending on your level of extras cover, depending on whether you've got PBS cover, depending on whether you get a prescription for it as a type 2 for type 2 management, or as a type 1, you will not get it for type 1 management because it is not approved for type 1 management yet. So you'll get it through the other pathway that says sort of for weight loss, sort of not, right. And it'll be a non-PBS script, and therefore you can claim it through HBF. So yeah, huge topic, lots of pressure on getting it out because people are seeing incredible benefits from it, lots of questions on is it appropriate for type 1 or not, still studies to be done, but lots of people are reporting it has a major impact at least on weight loss, and we know how tough that can be with type 1.
And then with comes weight loss. Your metabolism is obviously changing, so of course you're going to get some increased sensitivity towards your insulin. It's going to be easier to manage. Yep. You're going to see an improvement in your blood glucose levels, so it's all kind of a knock-on effect. So I can see why everyone's getting excited about it when things haven't worked for them in the past.
Absolutely. Perfect opportunity to segue into we are just 3 people who are veteran type 1s. We are not clinical pharmacists. We are not your endocrinologists. Please don't take our view on Ozempic as anything more than, the TGA is rating a bunch of people, which is kind of a cool story.
Exactly.
Where did this happen in Australia?
Oh, over east somewhere. I don't think we're interesting enough in Perth for this to happen here.
It hit the national news. Clearly it wasn't Western Australia. I'm sure we'll talk lots more about Ozempic. It's a hot topic. But
it is.
I think the concept of private health insurance and actually extras cover is something that I have been meaning to do the maths on for a long time, because it's this concept. I feel like the concept of insurance is that you pay a little bit kind of ongoingly, so that when you have some massive bill that you can never possibly afford to pay, that someone's got your back, right? And that almost the sky's the limit in terms of what the insurance will pay out. But with extras cover, it's like, well, we put all these caps on things. So you can pay us this much and then maybe we'll give you that much back. So it's like, well, if you get a surprise big dentist bill, well, you might have coverage, but only to this amount or whatever. So same thing here with, people have paid for whatever level of extras cover gives them rebates on non-PBS medications, but then, too many people want that, so we're not covering that now. I know. It's just, it feels like a bit of a fool's game to me. Moving on. A cool story happening in Australia at the moment around some advocacy work some people are doing to get government funding for insulin pumps. So I think only last I checked, about half of Australians have private health insurance. And as we know, with the cost of insulin pumps being like $8,000 to $11,000 or something, that basically means, you're only really getting on an insulin pump, if you want one, if you've got private health insurance. So these people are with the National Diabetes Inquiry into...
The Parliamentary Inquiry into Diabetes Care?
That one, yes. With that coming up, these people saw an opportunity to get some advocacy work done. So they have put up a petition on change.org. I think it's got just under 5,000 signatures at the moment to get government funding so that every person with type 1 in Australia would be government funded to get an automated insulin delivery system. So that would be something like, Control IQ on a tandem pump or Medtronic 780G or something like that.
So this is all coming off the back of a win in the United Kingdom, where they just managed to get universal access for AID devices through.
What's AID devices?
Automated insulin delivery.
Of course.
Because, of course, you can't call them insulin pumps. Don't ask me why.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. So big success in the UK. This is something that the community's been advocating for as long as I can remember. We have new tools in the toolkit to help make type 1 a little bit smaller, but we say, sorry, once you're over 18, work it out yourself, pay for it if you can. Not like type 1 costs any extra money. No. Cheap,
very cheap.
Cheap condition. Why don't we just put a barrier in the way from something that might help people?
And might save the health system some money in the long term.
Young, naive Adam thinking that the health system might forecast beyond its own nose and think about where's the cost coming from. Oh, bless you.
Further proof of my teenage mindset. Yes, continue.
So, as Adam said, insulin pumps are not for everyone, but the idea that they're not available, if that is the path that you want to choose, is frankly ludicrous. And this should have been in place years ago. We know the power of the community in this space. We managed to get continuous glucose monitors funded. That is a game changer. Every day I speak to people with type 1 who say to me that even having that 2-hour gap where they start up their new sensor is like having their arm cut off, because they have recognized the benefit of CGM. We got there.
Totally.
How can we not get to the place where insulin pumps are funded as well? We know that the best benefit from these things comes when we get CGM talking to insulin pumps, and they can be a bit of a safety net for us and a bit of an extra nudge in the right direction. And yet we say to people, you have to have private health insurance. Not just do you have to have private health insurance, you have to have a particular level of cover. It's still hard to get it through private health insurance. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Sign the petition, get on board, yell loudly. If you know any politicians, tell them this is ridiculous.
Yep.
And it's not to say that everyone should be on an insulin pump either, but it's just having that freedom. I only got private health insurance for the purpose of going on the pump. And type 1 costs us enough. Then we have to pour out our pockets for this stupid health insurance that, exactly, I'm with you on the extra covers, because it covers like next to nothing.
Something we agree on. Good Lord.
I make extras cover work for me. My extras cover has paid me out more than $3,000 this year already. You've just got to know to play the game, people.
Okay, I will set up a one-on-one with you and you can talk me how to take Medibank.
Next week.
Let's do a whole podcast episode screwing the private health insurers out of their money.
How to get what you want from your private health insurer.
we're nerds. But anyway, all right.
Speak for yourself.
So yeah, the next step in this, the organisers of this advocacy movement, they've got what they're calling an AID Access Summit coming up. They're bringing in Professor Partha Carr, who's an endocrinologist from the UK. He, as Benjamin mentioned, kind of spearheaded England and Wales, I think it is, providing healthcare access to AID systems. So we'll see what comes of that meeting. But yeah, we'll put the link to the petition in the show notes, so you can get on and sign that at change.org. But if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it as well. All right, last story for today before we move on to Prick of the Week. I'm looking forward to that segment. Is your soapbox ready, Benjamin?
Absolutely, always.
All right.
Carry it with me.
Dust it off, yep. Liquid stable glucagon. So the story itself is just that Beta Bionics, who make the iLet insulin pump, again, not available in Australia, have signed an agreement with a company called Xeris, I think, Xeris, for Xeris to provide them liquid stable glucagon to use in their dual hormone insulin pump. What the hell is that, you ask? If insulin is the accelerator, glucagon is the brakes. So we have this concept of put in insulin, but then obviously if you overdose, you can't pull it back out, right? So you've then got to treat with glucose or, deal with a hypo, whatever. Glucagon is the hormone that will trigger the liver to dump glucose into the bloodstream. So if we can deliver insulin and then if we, deliver too much or you end up doing some exercise or whatever it is, you can then deliver some glucagon and get some sugar released back into the blood. So I think this would be game-changing for AID systems. That would be, so cool.
This is super cool.
I wonder if it would still infuse, though, like into fat, because this is only triggering that thought when I gave birth to my daughter. That's what they did. They put me on an IV of insulin and glucose and managed it that way, just like with the little dials.
Yes, I think they do what insulin dextrose. So that's like actual just like sugar going in directly into your bloodstream, whereas this hormone would trigger the liver to dump its own glucose.
But would it have to go into the muscle? Is it like the whammy needle that you can give somebody when they're super, super low?
I haven't heard directly, but I kind of have to assume that we're not going to be doing intramuscular infusion sets just to make this work. So I assume that it can be delivered.
And how quickly it is.
Yeah.
Super interesting stuff. And they have been talking about dual hormone pumps for as long as I can remember, and not having liquid stable glucagon meant they couldn't do it. Now we can put it into a liquid form, so that's really exciting. Hopefully it will also change the game in glucagon injections, so we're not doing the little powdered mixture thing, which makes me feel like a chemist, and I always feel like I'm doing it wrong. Anywho, the other thing, and given you've mentioned my soapbox, let me pull my soapbox out for a minute. The other thing that makes this really exciting is that we kind of forget that the pancreas does more than produce insulin. So when you get type 1, it blasts your beta cells, hence the name of the podcast, and you can't produce insulin anymore. It actually leaves behind the alpha cells. They don't get attacked by your immune system. The alpha cells produce glucagon. So what is normally meant to happen is that you have this little counter-regulatory, there's the fancy term, system where you have insulin and you have glucagon and they work against each other. So if you have too much, you get the glucagon to bring it down. If you have too much glucagon, then you put more insulin, et cetera, et cetera. And we lose the ability to produce insulin at all, but our glucagon-producing cells still keep going. And they actually encourage us to produce more sugar and the liver to produce more sugar into the bloodstream, and it drives our blood sugar up even more than what we eat. We kind of discovered insulin 100 years ago and went, "Hey, job done, replace insulin," without understanding what a body that doesn't have type 1 is doing, which is this really complicated dance using glucagon and insulin. So bringing glucagon into the game means that the insulin pumps can have this whole new place to play with, this whole new hormone, this whole new way to introduce sugar into the bloodstream and counteract the action of insulin. It's going to be cool. Super cool.
I'm only just putting this together now. Are you saying that, we talk about basal insulin as the insulin that is responsible for taking care of the sugar that the that the liver deposits ongoingly, throughout the night.
Which it only does because it's getting a signal from the body to do so, which is the alpha cells.
Okay, right. I had always assumed the liver
just kept doing
did that by itself, but no,
it needs an instruction.
Okay. Right.
Probably the third time in this podcast we'll say, also not endocrinologists, and there will be better explanations out there, but knowing that your body is still producing glucagon and ticking along is one of the reasons why it's hard to manage. Your blood sugar keeps going up and you keep having to put insulin in.
Well, that's kind of like your flight or fight response as well. Those little like dumps.
Yeah, those little dumps of glucose that the body
That's
likes to
exactly
throw in.
why you often go low hours and hours after drinking alcohol, because your body stops, your liver stops that normal production of glucose because it's had to stop to process the alcohol. And people are always like, why? I don't understand.
Why is alcohol helping me?
I have a question on this because I was reading this and I saw the word no carb counting or calculating insulin corrections throughout the day. The islet determines 100% of the insulin doses.
You would like an
Excuse
explanation?
Me?
Yeah. So this is interesting.
Are we talking like closest thing to a working pancreas?
Depends how you look at it. It's what the marketing material kind of implies. So the islet insulin pump is the pump currently being made by Beta Bionics. They wanted it to be, I think, the pump that would be applicable to most people with type 1 to release them, get rid of the most burden for the most people. So you just give the pump when you set it up your weight, and that's it. And then it kind of monitors blood glucose levels and figures out the rest for you. Then when you eat, you either say, is this a normal amount that I eat for whatever the meal is? Is it more or
for which
is it
the
less?
Algorithm has recognized over a certain period of time in
This
the startup?
is your typical dose.
So it's learned, oh God.
So, yeah, it depends. It depends where you're at. Like if you are someone who is paying super close attention to glucose levels and eating and carb counting and all that kind of stuff, you will get better results from carb counting every time.
But if you're like spontaneous, I'm going to eat this now.
Yeah, if you're already
going to eat this,
if you're forgetting to bolus, if your life is just too hectic, if, whatever it is, this pump will probably make a huge difference for a decent chunk of the population. And it's hands off. It takes off a heap more of the mental burden. You won't be quite as in range all the time as you might be with a carb counting different algorithm, but I think there is a big section of the population that could benefit a lot from this.
I look forward to hearing more.
We should do some more deep diving on this at some point, because I think the interesting thing about this is it's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
So look, if you're eating the same thing every day with the same carb count, an algorithm can work it out.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what people are doing.
No.
I particularly don't think that's what people are doing who are not carb counting. I think they are going, I want to eat that whatever it is, and I'm going to eat it. And then going, catch me, algorithm. And if one of those foods is 100 grams of carbs and the other is 20, it's got no choice. It's just going to try and fail.
Interesting. There's pros and cons to every system. It's about finding what kind of works best for you and your lifestyle. But
You're not suggesting there's no one prescription for people with type 1, are you? You're a heretic. Don't we just get given those set doses when we're diagnosed and off we go?
Oh, don't. That's a whole nother soapbox, and we're not getting into that today. Otherwise we'll be here.
Away, save that for later.
Yeah, that is a soapbox. Even I'll get up on that one. Set doses. Good Lord.
We have plenty of time for soapboxes.
Yeah, we got time. All right, enough news.
Prick of the week.
I love this segment. We haven't done it yet, and I love this segment.
I'm looking at mine right now.
But
she was talking about me for anybody not watching
I'm
on
just
video.
This is our segment to talk about the little things that irritate us about type 1, the little silly things that we hear, the can you eat that's of the week.
The ignorant phrases.
The ignorant phrases.
The cinnamon will cure your type 1, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That kind of thing. It's a little prick in the skin. We're not calling anyone a prick. Actually, it depends on the topic. Moving on. Moving on.
I think we probably will be.
Moving on.
Parents, this one came from a post in our parents community this week who has been dealing with their child's school. So the kid has type 1, and this person wrote, the school teacher is now saying my son has to have his action plan and his backpack with all of his diabetes kit on him at all times. His goal was to eventually ditch the backpack, as it was his choice to go and play with it on him at playtimes, as it was a bit of a security blanket for him. So I finally got him okay with not having that during the holidays. But the teacher chucked it back in my face basically last Monday when I went in there excited to say that he could go and play without the backpack.
It's just so crap because she's gone in there and it's a huge milestone for them. That's, been an anxiety blanket, and he's kind of moved past that. He played this footy clinic without it, and she's gone in there like, I'm so excited. We've stepped up.
It's a milestone. Go team.
He doesn't need to play with his backpack anymore. Like, he's got that freedom. And then for the teacher,
oh man. Do kids with type 1 not feel like they're already a bit alone. You know, they're looking around going, other kids don't have to carb count, other kids don't have to have an insulin pump or an injection or run to the nurse or be followed around by the teacher. What's next? We put neon signs on them. We just, let's just put an insulin and a dextrose drip in them and follow around. Sorry, don't play football. You might rip that one out. It irritates the heck out of me. And I get it. You know, school is an environment where we've got to make sure kids are safe, and type 1 adds an extra risk. I get that.
And there's structure and protocol to follow, but this is not the general norm. A type 1 child does not have to walk around with his flippin' action plan on him. Are you joking?
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I think in some ways we've made progress. So we've got this, the Diabetes in Schools program where they're trying to kind of provide support to schools because schools have got all these kids with type 1 and they're like, it's scary. What do we do? But then at the same time, because there's a whole thing around it now everybody's even, I feel like in some cases more scared than they were before. And so they're really trying to put every single management strategy in place to make sure that the kid doesn't die on their watch, which I feel like is, sometimes just a little bit over the top.
It's a bit much.
Yeah. It's not a little bit over the top. It's totally over the top.
This is totally over the top. Agreed.
I'm like, he's trying to, fit in with his mates. Like, as much I'm just like angered by it. Like, just let him be a kid. Like, there's an action plan for a reason. He doesn't have to carry it on him. You've read it. You should understand it if you're the one
you know what
taking
to
the
do
care
if
while
something
he's
does
there.
go sideways.
Exactly.
Don't put a neon sign on them.
Don't make him feel any more isolated than what he might feel being type 1.
And if I trot the soapbox out for a moment, this is the thing that sticks with kids. We meet so many kids who get little messages about you're different. It's going to be harder for you to do things. If that little one takes away, I shouldn't play footy because when I do, there's clearly more risk and clearly I need to have this emergency backpack on place. That can be enough for him to say, I'll never do that again.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's like what we try to encourage everybody to, a common phrase we use here, live their life without limits. And this just goes so backwards on that, and it just makes me angry at such a young age. I'm like, we should be giving these, kids the best chance of living life the way that they want to live it.
You've just got to get in there and have a conversation. Hopefully this works out they manage to talk it through between the teacher and the parent and all that kind of stuff. But
once again, we're back to type 1 is different for everyone. And policies that say do one thing don't work particularly well.
Yeah.
I share the parents' disappointment, but...
Disappointment? I was fuming around the office for a week.
All right, let's move on to our How I Type 1 segment. We thought we'd just kind of bring you little snippets of, how we deal with little bits of day-to-day life of type 1. There might be a pro tip that you pick up on that might make your life a little bit easier with type 1. So today we thought we'd talk about hypo treatments. So do you want to lead off
feel like, of all the things, I like to think I follow the new tech developments. I find the best things that suit my management style, except for hypo treatments. I feel like I am still 20 years old on the hospital bed being told you should have some jelly beans because in my pocket right now is fruit pastels today in a little crappy Ziploc bag thing, and they have fused together because I've been sitting on them for the last hour. So someone help me. There needs to be a better solution. In fact, I have choked down many times a pack that has gone through the washing machine a couple of times. That is how I type 1.
Yeah.
Someone save me.
There was a great post in our adults community a couple of years ago, actually. Victoria, I think her name was, where she had like a hypo treatment of, it was some kind of lolly that had been sitting in her car for like a year, and it had gone through like a summer and a winter and whatever, and it had all melted together and fused and hardened, but it was the only thing she had access to at the time. So there's this photo of her like ripping her teeth off trying to bite into this mass of congealed goo. But
this is normal, isn't it? This is how people type 1. It was last week that I was sitting in my car with the little tube thing that I store all of my lollies in, which had been sitting on the dash and therefore had become a congealed mesh, and I couldn't get it out of the tube, so I had a pen in there and I was just pulling them out and then stuffing them into my face.
Well, I'm not much different, as in I carry kind of jelly beans on me. That's been my go-to for a while. They're a little bit slower than soft drink, which is like if I'm at home and I've just got one in my fridge, like I find that's quick and that's what I go for is like soft drink, and it's easy to get down at night instead of chewing if it's 2 a.m. But other than that, I just carry jelly beans around. You got anything different for us, Carly?
I was turned off jelly beans. Jelly beans was a thing that I started on when I was diagnosed, and just so many hypos in the early years. I just,
And medicine.
And I'm not a lolly, I'm not a lolly lover. I'm a chocolate lover. So it's like, most people who are lolly lovers, that would be their choice, right, over hypo treatments. But I just get a nasty spike from lollies. Don't get me wrong, I've always got a bag. Like I just said before, I've got snakes in my purse at the moment, but it's not my first choice because I always get after spikes. So there's a brand called Prima juice boxes, and they're the low sugar ones, which is funny. But they've got only 9 grams or 9 point something grams of sugar in them. So they're usually good for not like a really threatening hypo. Does the job because most juice boxes are like upwards from 15 to 20.
Yeah.
With a
so easy to
pump
smash
where you
one of
have
those.
a reduced, basal happening prior to needing to treat your hypo. It's like you're just wasting it, or you don't know how to like drink the right amount. So I love those because I can slot them in to my pairs. They're easy to get from the supermarket, anywhere, everywhere. But I have to be like, I'm quite boring. My choice is the glucose tablets. It's just they're not easy to get anymore.
But they're chalk.
Doesn't matter. So they're super quick. Just shh for a minute. They're super quick. They've got the exact 4 grams of sugar per. So you can choose, what you need between 4 and 12 or whatever. And no after spike, absolutely no after spike. Whereas I can tell you pretty much everything else will just give me a bit of an after spike, which I hate.
Sounds like you just lack self-control. Like spike for hypo treatment just means you've eaten too much sugar. I'm getting my judgy on now.
No. I don't. It's whatever else is coming along for the ride in those lollies and in everything else.
I'm just looking in horror at Adam because for the next week, anytime he has a hypo, Carly is going to destroy him on lack of self-control. But I'm also stuck on this, you eat chalk. They taste like chalk.
They do taste like chalk. And they break your teeth.
No, they don't.
Glucose tablets, terrible.
And then they get stuck in your teeth. And I always wonder how much of that is left behind. Am I not getting as a hypo treatment? Is it going to come later?
Guys, it is my turn to say what works for me. It is not your turn to bag it.
Welcome to the no judgment zone where we bag on Carly for half an hour about her hypo treatments.
My latest fave though, and again, if I was caught in the dark and I had a super downfall on my hypo treatment, I probably wouldn't go for this. But the Coco Bella coconut water is natural hydration, so full of electrolytes and all the good stuff. I'm just getting on my health soapbox for a moment here, but obviously high in natural sugars from the coconut. That works. So you're getting hydrated, you're putting actual good quality stuff into your body, and you're also treating a hypo, and it's my new favorite.
I think that takes the fun out of it. Just my 2 cents.
Coconut water tastes like blood to me.
It tastes terrible.
No, only Coco Bella is the only brand. Every other one tastes like sour.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what.
Coco Bella, if you'd like to sponsor the podcast,
Coco
let
Bella.
us know.
I also, Coco Bella, if you're listening, I also really like your coconut yogurt, natural and vanilla flavor. So, they're my choices. Wherever possible, I don't want an after spike that makes me angry. And I like to choose things that, like being the health-focused person for 95% of my time, I like to have good stuff going into my body. So if I'm having one of those times where I'm more sensitive to insulin and things are changing and I'm having more hypos, then I like to have a healthier option that works.
Cool.
So
I like the idea of that juice box, that just 9 grams sounds like, and then it's contained as well.
All I took away from this conversation is that you two have nothing for me, either chalk or trash water, and I'm sticking with my
juice box. You don't like
Castles.
the juice box idea?
Juice boxes have too much sugar in them. They kick my
9
butt.
grams. How much do you need for a hypo treatment?
4 is too much.
Wow.
We can talk about that. That's a whole separate conversation.
Oh, man. This is Mr. Benjamin Jardine, who spends 90% in range?
93% currently, but let's have a caveat. This has been 21 years in the making.
Benjamin's super low carb as well, so it does help take a bit of risk out of the picture, so I can understand how a lower hypo treatment would be needed.
If food's full of sugar, kick your butt, don't eat them is one strategy.
Yeah.
It's not the only strategy, but it's one strategy.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
Let's wrap this up with our pick of the week, not to be confused with the prior prick of the week.
Very different things.
Very different.
Prick things we whinge about, pick things we celebrate.
Indeed.
Our pick of the week is Marley Spoon. You haven't actually tried it though, Adam, have you?
I have not.
No.
So Marley Spoon I've been using for almost 2 years now. And
I only just got on the bandwagon.
oh, there you go. Marley Spoon is a food delivery service, if you're not familiar with it, of the sort of HelloFresh
Variety.
dinner plate variety, where they send you a box of pre-portioned ingredients, but you're still cooking your own meals. And super exciting. Marley Spoon, not sponsored, has just come out with the ability to filter all of their recipes for low carb options. So if you are looking for something that, if you are one of those people who says, I'm going to eat foods that have less carbs in them so I have less of a blood glucose response, or you're just feeling like a lower carb option, you've got a really easy filter to do it now. Their meals are delicious. They are big enough. I have a family with 2 hungry little children and 2 hungry parents, and it suits us really well. There's often leftovers, good variety. So I don't know if you've used other meal delivery services before, but typically they have 1 or 2 low carb options, which are low carb.
Less options for flexibility with that kind of thing, which is what I liked. I was like, normally when I did HelloFresh for a little while, I was just doing like the 3 meals a week for 2 people. And it'd be really hard to pick. And I'm like, like really struggling with what 3rd meal to put in there. Whereas with Marley Spoon, I just started this a couple of weeks ago. I was like, kept scrolling back up and I was like, oh, but I kind of like that one. And then scroll down, oh, but I kind of like that one. And then kind of like this one.
It's like a kid in a candy store. It's awesome.
I was like, it's kind of exciting, especially when you're busy and you just want to take the stress out of cooking. Maybe you want to take the stress out of the carb load. Then, yeah, it's nice. And I'm someone who's not super low carb all the time. And I have a child as well to mix in. So, yeah.
And super easy to modify the recipes for that. I have 2 kids who will eat all the carbs. And super easy just to add the carb to it.
Add a side.
Add a side. Other hot tip that Marley Spoon won't like particularly much, but you are getting carb-counted recipes on a little recipe card every time you get them delivered. You find one that you like, you've got a carb-counted recipe, save it, stick it in a binder, make it every time. There's nothing special about what comes in the Marley Spoon ingredients.
Yeah. I have to say, and it's more accurate because, I'm sorry, HelloFresh, but your nutrition panels are wildly inaccurate.
Interesting.
Sorry, not
Couldn't
sorry.
agree more.
There you go. All right. I think that brings us to a wrap for episode 1. So thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to do one of these a fortnight. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
We will.
Ta-ra.
Bye.
If you've been listening today thinking that is so relatable, you should consider joining our online community, where over 1,000 other people with type 1 are sharing their experiences, learning and supporting each other. Head to type1familycentre.org.au/connect.
Too-rah.
What is too-rah?
He's going to throw no walkers in
You're
next.
like, one end you're a total grandpa, the other end you're a teenager. It's like no medium ground.